The late 1800s oversaw an era of transition from gas-powered lights to modern electricity. During this period, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison made significant changes that impacted the way America functions today. However, their ideas refuted one another's, and a heated debate took place. They clashed in a series of propaganda conflicts that attempted to convince the public who should be the next superpower to electrify America. This debate is known as the War of the Currents. Nikola Tesla was an electrical inventor from Croatia, Europe. He traveled to America when he was 35 in hopes of spreading his newly created invention, the alternating current, otherwise known as AC. This alternating current allows electricity to turn different directions consistently, making it possible for the volts to travel long distances. On the other hand, Thomas Edison was an established businessman from Milan, Ohio. He had a different invention, the direct current, also known as DC. This current traveled in a straight line but could only travel a short distance. Even though this current had a major flaw, Edison knew he could profit from this because he would be the only producer of electricity in America. He established the Edison Illuminating Company and had patented his DC inventions. He then developed a practical distribution system that could deliver electricity throughout an entire city. The drawback was that if a customer didn't live within a 1-mile radius of a power plant, they would be subjected to blackouts. Edison had gained a lot of money from this. However, when Tesla came to America, there was competition. As more people saw the advantages of AC, the public began to leave Edison's company for Tesla's inventions. Tesla quickly filed patents, making the product invalid to copy. Edison began to worry. He knew his current was less efficient, but he didn't want to lose all royalties he earned from his DC patents. This is what first motivated the start of the current war.
In 1891, Edison was the first one to act, quickly partnering up with J.P. Morgan, the largest U.S. banker. J.P. Morgan paid nearly $2 million to buy into Edison's company. This allowed him to experiment without a budget, as well as use Morgan as a celebrity to promote himself. Tesla retaliated by getting his own sponsor. He first presented his work in a paper called A New System of Alternating Current Motors and Transformers to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers in 1888. It got the attention of George Westinghouse, a famed inventor who created the railway air brake. Upon seeing his work, Westinghouse saw potential in the alternating current. So, in July 1886, Tesla partnered up with Westinghouse and formed the Westinghouse Electric Company. Westinghouse offered him $60,000 to purchase its AC patents, an extra $5,000 in cash, and 150 shares of stock in the Westinghouse Corporation. He also agreed to pay royalties of $2.50 per horsepower of electrical capacity sold. And now both Edison and Tesla had huge sponsors on their team, so different tactics had to be used. Fortunately for Edison, in November 1887, Alfred Southwich, a member of the New York Commission, was sent to find new ways to execute people. He wrote to Edison asking for any solutions. Edison was initially reluctant to respond because he had always opposed the death penalty, but saw the opportunity to discredit Westinghouse. He recommended alternating currents by Westinghouse as the best appliance for killing someone instantaneously with the least amount of suffering. Edison backed the electric chair not as a humane way to eliminate convicted criminals, but as a way to get a competitive advantage over Westinghouse. And as a result, the world's first electric chair was made, powered by 3 AC generators. Westinghouse himself tried to fight back by hiring a top lawyer to halt the execution of William Kemmler, the convict poised to become the first man to be electrocuted by the chair. But it was to no avail. Edison's popularity overruled Westinghouse's dispute. So on August 6, 1890, William Kemmler was sent to the chair. After being strapped in, over 1,000 volts of energy were sent into his body. After the shock, smoke was observed coming out of Kemmler's head, who was clearly deceased. An autopsy was showed that the electrode attached to his back had burned through into his spine. This act had succeeded for Edison. The public were shocked. Multiple newspapers were published stating that the man in the chair was flaming and blood vessels exploded underneath his skin. This was a large setback for Tesla and Westinghouse, but they were nowhere close to giving up. Tesla wanted to prove that AC was safe using his own body. So in 1891, Tesla held a public demonstration in the lecture hall at Columbia University in New York City. He held a brass ball in each hand, then touched the terminals of a high-voltage, high-frequency transformer. For a moment, 250,000 volts raced across the surface of his body, causing him to be surrounded by countless tongues of electric flame. Yet after a few moments, the man stepped away from the machine, the electric aura disappeared, and to the delight of the audience, he was unharmed. By doing so, he had convinced the public that the alternating current was safe.
Both sides had taken risks and succeeded. A number of cities had adopted the Edison DC system and were being electrified with that system. Others had chosen the Westinghouse AC system and were being wired accordingly. But Edison was still winning. The alternating current had too many accidents with innocent citizens. On April 15, 1888, a 15-year-old boy was killed by a broken telegraph that had been energized with AC from the United States Illuminating Company. 2 weeks later, a clerk was also killed by an AC line. And if it weren't bad enough, a Brush Electric Company lineman was killed in May by the AC line he was cutting. The press in New York reported death by wire incidents. Edison continued to discredit Tesla's alternating current by directing his attention to animals. In 1903, the execution of Topsy, a female elephant, took place at the opening of Luna Park on Coney Island. After Edison's workers fastened copper plates to her feet, 6,600 volts of electricity were sent to her body. Topsy was seen to become rigid, throwing her trunk in the air and then completely enveloped in smoke from the burning plates. The current was cut off and she fell forward to the ground, dead. It seemed like a losing battle for the small entrepreneurs, but all was not lost. By 1889, Westinghouse had built 870 central lighting stations. People still used AC by just how more efficient it was than DC. The distance it could travel farther than DC was massive. But Edison didn't give up there. He published a book called The Dangers of Electric Lightning. In this review, he states that the alternating current is the fourth class of electricity that can kill you instantly. Both sides had made sacrifices for the greater rewards, but the tipping point was the Chicago World Fair. This event is a large international show designed to showcase the achievements of nations. Over 27 million people attend these gatherings. Both sides knew this was a huge opportunity to finally showcase their current on a massive scale, possibly winning the current war. There were 100,000 light bulbs that needed lighting, but who would do it was the question. Both Edison and Westinghouse quickly put their bids in to light the fair. Edison Electric first bid to light the fair for $1.8 million. This bid did not go well because it cost too much. The company then made a second bid worth $554,000. However, unknown to Edison, George Westinghouse proposed to light the fair for $399,000. Westinghouse secretly planned this, resulting in him winning the bid with a $150,000 cheaper alternative than Edison. On May 1, 1893, President Grover Cleveland was going to push the button that would turn on every lamp at the fair. After saying a few words to the crowd, he pushed a golden button, and hundreds of thousands of light bulbs buzzed to life. Lights radiated over a grand lake and illuminated many grand buildings, while multicolored rays pierced the sky. It was so bright, some spectators even called it the White City. They've done it. The public saw the massive scale of their electricity and reacted accordingly. AC was beginning to be used all across America. They've won.
DC soon began to phase out. Shortly after, in 1896, JP Morgan stopped funding Edison and removed his name from the company. Then, on November 16, 1896, the construction of the first hydraulic power plant in Niagara Falls, New York, was completed. Power first flowed into the homes of Buffalo. In recognition for all the hard work he had done, a statue of Tesla was built on Goat Island, overlooking the falls. This battle between Edison and Tesla contributed greatly to how electricity distribution functions today. Alternating currents continue to power the United States power grid and electrical lines above and below ground. AC transports energy to outlets to power everyday needs like air conditioning and fridges. To power smaller objects like phones, batteries, and solar cells, alternating currents are converted into direct currents using a transformer. In conclusion, spanning from 1887 to 1893, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison clashed in a series of propaganda conflicts that sought to convince the American people whose energy system was most efficient. Both men resorted to violent demonstrations, spread false information, and involved themselves in diplomatic relations with the press. Known as the War of the Currents, this debate eventually led to both Edison and Tesla's inventions to work jointly to power the Americans' demanding needs. The two had their differences, but the debate between Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison shaped history into what it is today.